Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Talking Cryptocurrency podcast. I'm your host, Jason Rigden. On this episode of the show, we're talking to Peter Harris of Resonate. Resonate is trying to change the way we stream music, giving more power to listeners and musicians. And they're using blockchain technology to do it. This is a really fun interview. I hope you like it. But first, of course, I've got a short message. I really hope you like this show. I put a lot of work into it. If you do like it, would you please consider doing something for me? Give me a review on Apple Podcasts. Now, if you're a hardcore podcast listener, you are probably sick of hearing this. Every show begs for reviews, and it's a little annoying. But it does make a big difference. Those reviews help people decide to subscribe. They help guests choose which shows to go on. Those ratings and reviews for the shows are a direct way you can help this show grow. So, if you like this show and you want more, please help me. Take the time and give the show a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, or whatever they're calling it now. Hello, and on this episode, I'm here with Peter Harris, Resonate. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jason?
Doing pretty good. So could you tell me a little bit about the problems you're trying to solve with this project?
So if you sort of take a look at Resonate and the typical kind of, problem solution framework, I would say we're looking at stuff from a couple angles. One is that there's a big problem with the ways that money is being distributed to artists in the streaming age. If you look at other companies like Spotify, they're not the only ones that do this. Most everybody does this. They use something that's known as the market share model for calculations. And what they do is they take all the money into a big pot, and then they divide it by total number of streams, and they have to calculate premium versus ad. And what ends up happening is that a larger portion of the monthly subscription money goes to bigger artists. So if you're somebody that likes independent music and you go in and listen to, a half a dozen albums or artists, the majority of your spending money every month is not actually going to them. And it's not out of ill will. It's, basically the way that they have to operate kind of based on the kinds of deals that they did with the major labels and stuff. So I knew really early on, I want to do something in streaming. I know I wanted to build with blockchain technology. And I knew pretty early that I wanted to be based off the cooperative model, because I think the cooperative model is the closest thing that matches the sort of decentralization ethos of blockchain. And then the bigger question, or the next question was, well, okay, what's the actual, go-to-market model? And that's when I discovered all the problems that existed in this sort of inequitable distribution issues with artists. There was a lot of artists at that time talking about it. Tom York from Radiohead, Taylor Swift, they were making a lot of noise. And so from there, I realized that really the most ideal solution was going to be start from scratch, come up with a different model that's going to be, that's not going to have these wildly different ratios based on who you are, have a fixed rate. And, what kind of fits with a blockchain system is, the idea of microcredits and fixed payment. And at the time I was doing all that research, I was listening to this. I still had a Spotify account at that point. And I realized I was listening to the same two albums over and over again. And I thought, this is really stupid. I'm streaming that, and I'm not owning it. If I want to buy these albums to have offline, because I didn't have the offline account, I was I'm going to have to go out and pay for this all over again, even though all my money is going theoretically to this one artist for these two albums. And I realized, oh, wait a minute, that's a new model, stream to own. So that's one angle in which I'd say that we're, kind of trying to solve a real specific problem in the business, is that there's a real disconnect around the distribution of monies. It's also it doesn't compare at all to the amount of money that artists used to make. Yeah, you can look at the calculations and find out that with the per stream rates, it can take anywhere from 150 to 300 plays of the same song to equal the price of a download. So, most artists are not getting anywhere near that kind of repeat listening. And even if you're a fan of something, you listen to it 10 times, it's just a minuscule amount of money compared to when people used to buy the song on iTunes. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is just the larger systemic issues that exist in the business, which is that you've got lots of verticals between record labels, publishers, digital service providers, and the collection societies. And these data sets that everybody's managing, they're not really fully interoperable. And it gets very murky when it comes to rights assertion. And it gets even worse because in the business, you've got two sets of rights. You've got the master rights and the composition rights. The master is the recording of the song. The composition is who wrote the song. For Radiohead, they're one and the same. But, if you're doing a cover of a Bob Dylan song, then the composer fee in that case goes to someone else. And the way that this works in the industry is in very unpolite terms a clusterfuck because it's the rules change based on the context in which you exist, whether you're a subscription service where you can go and search and find something specific, or you're a more actually spacing on the term, if you like Pandora, where you could put an artist's name and then they're going to build you a radio channel, but you can't actually look up in the catalog. I think that changed recently. I think Pandora started offering a more of an on-demand scenario, but and then if it's just regular radio, it's a completely different model. And then if it's a download, it's different. And then if it's a sale of a physical device, the process is different there. So all of these different rules around how music is consumed, plus, as I mentioned, all these data silos leads to a lot of problems with efficiencies. And so like years ago, I had a friend that actually recorded a couple of songs with Santana on Santana's big comeback albums like 15 years ago. And it took him like 3 or 4 years to get paid. I mean, I don't think there's any other industry that's got such a problem with paying their suppliers. So we're also working on more like infrastructure level stuff. And I think blockchain is really the ideal solution there. So that was a very long intro.
No, that was great, because it's a big problem and people don't really realize how complicated it is. Just like that composer versus performance thing. That's really confusing to someone who just is like, they just know their songs. But when you get into the business side of it, it's very complicated.
It's confusing to artists too. You'd be surprised, though. Most new artists have no idea that there's all this money on the table that they're not reporting about to the right authorities because they've never, asserted their rights about it. It's a huge mess, and in some ways, it's going to get cleaned up. There's this bill that's before the Senate. It's gone through all kinds of different stages. It's super close to passing in the U.S. that is aiming to fix it. And it's probably the one time that all the stakeholders have come together to try and solve this issue. But it's designed in such a way that if independent artists that are not part of a decent label, or, they don't have a really good management team, what'll happen is that if they don't enter into the system right away, after a period of like 3 years or something, the money's going to revert to the big publishers. So it's close to a solution, but still not quite. And it's really quite messed up. So, but I really feel kind of optimistic too, that I think that, with blockchain, it's the first time we've got the kind of technology that's capable of doing it, from a technical solutions point of view, but you do still run into like, the will, and that's another thing altogether. The will to change, the will to evolve.
Yes. So how is Resonate trying to solve some of these problems?
Well, we're doing it with our stream to own model, which is we do a system where you top up, you put a certain amount of money in, and then we do microcredits, and it progressively scales the more you listen to the same song. So what we're basically doing is splitting up the cost of a download over a bunch of plays. And it's super cheap when you're just getting to know a song and an artist for the first time. But then as you kind of become more of a fan, the price increase hits at a point where you really like and are committed to the artist. And our niche community, which is pretty large, looking at some research from Nielsen, is a community that really cares about independent music. They want to support it. They want to pay for it. They are still paying for it. This myth that nobody pays for music is just complete bullshit. and there's a lot of data to support that, but it's become a meme that, kind of propagated post Napster. But it's just not true. There's a lot of folks that still pay for music and even want to pay for downloads, because they understand that they're buying art. They're supporting an artist, and that they're going to get more music from that artist if they give them money. It's a very, very simple math. So that's who we're going after. And so far in the independent scene, we've been really super successful with getting in a bunch of key labels, and we're friends with a bunch of the trade associations and such. So
and so really on the listener side, do you pay like a monthly fee like you would do with Spotify?
At the moment, no, it's a top up. So you choose to top up, $5, $10, $20. Once we get the blockchain catalog system up, however, we're also going to look at doing a subscription share model whereby you get to, do you do a monthly fee? You won't get to own the songs, but you won't have to look at the cost. And then the money will be directly distributed based on who you listen to. So it'll have the same fairness and transparency that we get through Stream to Own, but it'll be for those that, really just don't want to think about it.
And are you using a cryptocurrency for this?
There will be a token for a lot of the overall system of how the community functions. It will be really a utility token in its functionality. And I hope that we can bridge it against the credit system and the payment system, but we're not making use of the music service dependent upon a crypto token. This is a huge mistake that a lot of the other services are making. They really think that the way they're going to do it is they're going to convert people into crypto, and I think that it's really wrong that they're not going to. It's going to take years before those kinds of UX systems are really built up enough to be able for it to be so seamless as pulling out a credit card. But so we have more of a hybrid approach.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of friction right now. It can be very frustrating to users when they want to participate in these crypto systems, but they don't realize how complicated it is.
Oh God. Yeah. It's monstrously.
So what have been some of the challenges of solving this problem? Has it been hard to explain to artists how the system works?
Not really. I mean, the blockchain education stuff has taken more time, but we've really seen a big turnaround there too. I mean, it was even a year ago, some of the organizations and people I've talked to where they were still feeling a bit more resistance. A year later, they've really come around. I think it's the overall concept of what this means as a technology has really permeated the broader culture. And so there's more of an openness to say, what's going on here? So I think we're getting there. But as far as like the general idea of that the people should own the services that they use, or there needs to be a more fair model for artists, I think that's there. We've tapped into that zeitgeist or that sentiment already. So I think we're going to have to do more work to convert folks that haven't really thought about it so much. But I think that when we start to roll out the new service this fall, I think that it's going to do it for us, because it's going to be a very different experience compared to what they get elsewhere.
Now, can the artists get like analytics about their plays?
Yeah, that we have really basic stuff at the moment, but that's going to be dramatically improved with the launch of their new system. We just got funded back in March. We've been around for several years, but we had a stage where we were really run by volunteers, and that's because the co-op model is great in a lot of ways, except you can't really, it doesn't appeal to VC funders because there's no equity. So once we got funding via Archain in March, that's allowed us to really kick it off and scale up and stuff. So that's leading to the launch of a new system this fall. So that's going to give us a lot more of the more detailed control over analytics and on all sides.
And so what made you choose the co-op model over the standard kind of corporation?
Well, I think, it was really clear to me that what it was is that the co-op model is a defender of culture, because it's a defender of the people in the ecosystem. It doesn't place any individual above another. And the problem I'd seen as an artist myself was being on the end of some policy change or business model change that was done by the service I used, and I had no say over it, and I had no recourse. And it was just like, well, either you're going to go along with this or you can leave. There was no other recourse. And so I had my co-founder in a previous startup. We had very briefly toyed around with the idea of the co-op model years ago. And so when I got into Ethereum in the early days and saw that this is where the blockchain was going to be the future of from a technological point of view, and how information would be distributed and value would be exchanged and all that, it was really clear, like, oh, that co-op idea, that's the way to go, because that's what's going to protect the artists. That's what's going to give them a say, and the listeners too, because the same thing can happen on the listener side, that, you're treated as a commodity. And so, it's about extracting as much as possible from you. It's not about, who you are in an ecosystem, how are you relevant to culture? And, that's I think the demarcation point, or that's the line in the sand that we draw, which is that music is art and culture. It's not content. It's not a commodity. And a lot of the other services really kind of take that approach. And so, like the old saying goes, if something's free, then you're the product. I think that's the way that most of our competitors operate. And so that's why the co-op model is, I think, really necessary.
And so what made you use the blockchain for this project?
Well, I really had the founding inspiration came from it. I mean, I had wrapped up the previous startup that I was in and was kind of wondering what was going to come next. And then I got involved in the Ethereum crowd sale. That's when I learned to buy Bitcoin so that I could buy Ether. And so that was summer 2014. And then I was just kind of percolating on ideas for a while. And then it was like February 2015, I heard a lecture from Vinay Gupta, who was doing communications and coordinations not communications, maybe it was just team coordination for Ethereum at that point. And I heard a lecture from him, and it was that's what sparked it off. And it was like, okay, wait a minute. You could bake fairness and transparency and trust into the system. You could put it at the architecture level. I was like, oh, that's the way to do a startup. So it was really clear that I wanted to do something. And then it was like the notion of applying it to music service came later.
So if I'm an artist, how do I get my music onto the service?
You sign up and you upload.
Just that simple.
Yep.
Fantastic. So what are some of your plans for the future going forward?
We've got some really big developments that are going to hit pretty quick. One of them is with our technology partner, Archain, who, as I mentioned, funded us through their venture arm, Reflective Ventures. And they are going to do a demo at Archon in Berlin the first week of September. It'll be on September 5th, to be precise. And that's going to be quite exciting. We are going to be part of that in the future. I have to be a little bit vague about it because Archain's working with a technology partner, and they're under NDA, and I haven't been quite put under NDA yet. So, but we're going to be a part of the rollout of this this new audio technology, and helping to build out the blockchain infrastructure for that. And so that's going to be quite exciting. Lots of implications for the future of music distribution. And that's as much as I will say about it now. But if you're in Berlin, and if you'd like to come to Archon and you're not already planning to go, if you hit me up on Twitter, Peter Atomic, I might be able to get you a pass. So I would love to have you come on September 5th for our demo. And so there's that going on. And then, I mean, we've got some other developments happening this fall with the launch of a new system. and a maybe there might be something like a token. There might be something like a token sale, or it may not be. It may not be like a token sale in the way that you think. Who knows? It's hard to even say the word token sale without being, like feeling like some bureaucrat is going to reach out of the computer
Yes.
and like slap your wrist or something.
Okay. So that is kind of on the horizon, possibly. Talking to more people who are having that kind of on the fence feeling about doing the token sales or not. They're not sure if it's what it was before. That was the very first thing everybody seemed to be doing. Because you actually have an operational product. Like, I was listening to music just before we started talking.
Yeah, we exist as a service, which I think is probably different than a lot of things that are more speculative in nature. But still, you read these stories about the SEC coming down on somebody, and it just it gets spooky.
Yep. There's a huge burden of regulation right now that we're really hoping gets fixed soon, at least in the United States. And with these worldwide organizations, it's a little bit hard because, everyone's got all different regulations, but at least hoping that the United States will get their act together. But who knows? That might be a silly hope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen some positive things come out, but on the other hand, then you hear another story about how they went after somebody. Like, I just read an article a couple of days ago about some case in which the guy was as stupid as you could possibly be with like the way he marketed this thing. It was for some kind of petroleum exploration thing. Yeah, it wasn't the Venezuelan one. But I mean, he just couldn't have done it worse. But the thing that came out of it though was that there was some ruling about it. They were connecting it to penny stocks and connecting tokens to penny stocks. And that's scary because there's a lot more regulation of penny stocks because they're high risk. And so, the way it was described, it was sort of like, this basically shuts down all token sales for all time. It's a little bit stark. So yeah, I mean, and it's hard to be hopeful when, when Ether takes a massive dive. What is it? Lost 30% in the last couple of weeks. Yeah. So,
and the U.S. Congress has like kind of a technophobia about things. They don't really embrace new technologies. They're a little old.
They don't understand new technologies. I mean, we saw that at the Facebook hearings, right?
Yeah. It's kind of comical, and they're making the decisions and pulling the levers, and it can be very frustrating at times.
Yeah, it's very, very weird.
So it's a really cool project. It's really inspiring too. How you've thought about all the stakeholders. Is there anything that I should have asked you that maybe I missed?
That's pretty broad. Well, I would love to talk about the previous topic in much more depth, but I'm really quite nervous about it. No, actually, this is why I feel like really excited to be a co-op and also to be a part of our chain is that their legal counsel, their approach to the Howey test, the answer is co-op. Because if you look at the Howey test, benefiting from the work of others, not in a cooperative. In a cooperative, you're supposed to participate. You're a participating member. So if your members are active and they're doing something, then they're not benefiting off of the work of others. And the expectations of profits is also diffused because if you've got a community of people that are collectively trying to create something together, then any gain that happens in the market is the result of market forces. It's not that you gave money to somebody to go make you money and you're just going to sit on your ass. So I think their approach to merging the co-op model with this all the concerns that exist in the Howey test is really, really smart. And I feel super confident about that when I'm in consideration of the possibility of the maybe might sort of could theoretically happen with something that might occur later on in the near
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah. All I would say, like, if you're interested, become a member of our chain or become a member of Resonate and join the co-op.
Totally.
And then you can find out more.
Well,
say no more.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's a really great project, and I will definitely be using it personally.
Cool. Yeah, stick around. Hang in there. We've got quite a bit of bugs with the old system. That's all going to get replaced, and we're going to have a totally new brand and design and interface and everything coming in around October-ish. And it's going to make everything a lot easier, and also it's going to pave the way for where we're going to really go next year, which is I think very exciting, because it's really about connecting artists and fans in direct ways, and also looking at music culture in a really robust manner. So very excited about that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, Peter, for coming on the show. Resonate is a really cool project. Streaming music has totally changed how we listen to music, and Resonate might just revolutionize the way we stream music. There's also another example of a blockchain project using the cooperative model. If you want to learn more about Resonate, check out the show notes. I've got all the links down there. You've been listening to Talking Cryptocurrency Podcast. My name is Jason Rigden, and I have been your host. Thanks for listening to the show. If you liked it, would you please consider giving us a rating and a review on iTunes? I look forward to talking to you again soon. Have a great day.